What impact will this have? We look at that plus the week that was in politics as we edge closer to the August election, now just under 2 months away. Our political analysts in studio tonight, Haman Manyora, Barak Muluka, Gabriel Muduma and Jennifer Shamala, and they'll put matters into perspective for us. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Talk to us. The hashtag is GamePlan2017 on Twitter. You can text us on 22422 very quickly. Let's sample a few tweets now. Brian Alingalinga says Kalonzo should do something about losing followers before it's too late because it will cost him. Dennis Maina, in gambling, it is called double chance. Kalonzo vowed not to stay in the cold for another 5 years. Nikujipanga, my friend, of course, talking about Kenyatta's claims that Kalonzo has submitted his list for nomination in the Senate. Kalonzo, of course, has rubbished that. Jonathan says, this is all politics. Let them wait and see. And Nicolas Atuya, Kalonzo had totally lost ground in Ukambani, and be it that NASA will not clinch power, then his politics will be forgotten. Well, keep talking to us on 22422 on Twitter is the hashtag GamePlan2017. Let's begin with the pronouncements by Kalonzo Musyoka's lieutenants in Ukambani. Minority leader Nyenze was now said, what he has said today, basically supporting Kenyatta, the re-election of anybody who's working. But of course Kenyatta, talking about supporting Kenyatta. Let's take a look at what he said.
Mheshimiwa Uhuru, Mheshimiwa kila mtu, zote tuchaguliwe bila kujali huyu ni chama gani, huyu ni chama gani, kwa sababu mwishowe huyu ndiye atakutumikia.
Concerns have been raised about undercurrents in Kalonzo Musyoka's Ukambani turf. I'll start with you, Barak. What do you make of this?
I've of course seen Mheshimiwa Nyenze speaking like he's possessed. I don't know what has possessed him, maybe some spirit, but they are stuck with him and they're in trouble because he is a Wiper candidate to the best of my knowledge. He has not defected, and here he is campaigning for somebody else. One starts wondering at what point he saw the light. As a Christian gentleman, I have read the place where Saul of Tarsus talks about his journey to Damascus when he saw the light, and I don't know at what point it is that Nyenze has seen the light, but I do remember that a few months ago he used to say that no Kalonzo, no NASA. Was he always on some kind of mission? Did he believe no Kalonzo, no NASA? Did he believe that Kalonzo was the best candidate, or did he doubt? At some point. Did he doubt Uhuru's astuteness for that office, or was he under some kind of sponsored mobility? Think there are many questions which come into the picture at this point, and which we have to wait. When it comes to Musila of course wanted a direct nomination for Kitui gubernatorial race on a Wiper ticket. Two things that very quickly come to mind. Number one, as a sitting senator, at what point does he seem to have realized, just like the other senators, that the better office to run for was the office of governor? The second question would be that here is a situation where there is a sitting governor, and who for all practical purposes and intents is still in the best books of the party. How do you get a director?
But should this worry Kalonzo?
It must worry him. It must worry them.
Jennifer?
I think that what's important to note is that Nyenze from the onset wanted Kalonzo to be the presidential candidate, and he was very clear about that. Now, indeed, it has to worry the NASA, the entire NASA brigade, because what has happened is, interestingly enough, I think it was a week ago, we saw Charity Ngilu with NASA in Kakamega make her first appearance and clearly take sides with the NASA brigade. And there's definitely I would assume now, a situation whereby they're beginning to realize that, you know what, since in the event that, you know, we're unhappy, he didn't get, you heard him saying that if it were not for me, he wouldn't even have gotten the number 2 slot. Yeah. And in the essence, I think what is dawning on in Cumberland, and even in Kenya as a whole, is there's nothing new in 2017. It's the same players, it's the same game that we had in 2013 with the same candidates. And I think that is what should now begin to start worrying NASA.
What are you saying in other words? That they now think
yes, you have the same presidential, yes, because what has changed? What are the issues? Okay. You have exactly the same presidential candidates, at least for the front runners, and exactly the same deputies.
Ahman?
Well, if you were to begin there, you would say that politics are very dynamic kind of stuff. Nothing remains the same, not even for a month. Now, it certainly can't remain the same. From 2013 to 2017, Jennifer, a lot has changed. Without going into the details, we just accept that so much has changed, and the game can go either way. In a return match, it does not matter how much you score the other team, things could change. As for Nyenze, I also don't think Nyenze ever supported Kalonzo. It is now becoming very clear. Nyenze had a brief. He was always doing somebody's bidding, because we always wondered how he was dancing. His dance style was quite interesting. It was out of sync with the rest.
It was not Mwomboko.
Yeah, it was not Mwomboko. And now, with hindsight, in retrospect, we can now confirm the suspicions we had that Nyenze was always doing somebody's bidding, as it has come up very clearly. From Sila, it is obvious. You can see he has walked the journey with Kalonzo Musyoka. He has supported Kalonzo Musyoka.
He's been very close to him.
Very close to him. He sacrificed maybe a lot.
And now he's making those pronouncements.
And now he thought he was entitled to that thing. So for him, I think he's just a sulking person. But like Baraka says, really.
But regardless,
yes.
I mean, looking at Nyenze, looking at Musila, yes, looking at Mudhama,
yes,
and we had NASA have rallies all through this week until today. They were first, I think, on Monday in Machakos. They went to Mtitwande, they went to Wote and all those places. Mudhama was absent.
Correct.
Should this worry them? Should this worry NASA? Should this worry Kalonzo in terms of
yes
votes?
And no. To begin with, no, because I think Kalonzo has run away with the Kamba vote. There's nobody who can deny them that vote. But yes, because this is a closely fought election, and you don't want even to lose one vote, and therefore, however little they scratch from Ukambani, that ought to worry NASA.
They need Ukambani as a whole, isn't it?
No, they can't get a whole. Even if they got 10%, that's bad enough for NASA.
No, I'm saying NASA need Ukambani as a whole.
Yeah, they need all of it.
So can these people that we're talking about, Gabriel, do anything to destabilize NASA's need to get the whole of the Ukambani votes?
We're saying they can. You know, these are not just people. They are leaders, and to an extent, they have followers. It doesn't matter how many people they'll come up with, or they come to any other camp. They'll come with a few people, enough to make a dent. When you're talking about Nyenze, are we chastising Nyenze because of who he is or because of what he says?
Not chastised him.
Methinks, Barack, Nyenze is who he is. He just did not wake up yesterday to say the utterances or the statements that he's making. I mean, let's face it. He actually was the first person to call it out that they were being given a raw deal. Right? People said, you know, it was Kalonzo speaking through Nyenze, but really, Nyenze is just an honest man from where I'm seated. He looks at this whole scenario and said, we had an issue. We had a memorandum in 2013. Raila, you're supposed to serve one term, whether you want the seat or not, you're supposed to exit. Nyenze is looking at this and you're giving us a raw deal. He comes in back and says, you know what, okay, fair enough, you've told us 1, 2, 3. Come to what we are saying, these statements. And he's been the only person talking, and he's not just any other person. You know, this is, you know, somebody who's holding a senior office. Leader. Yes, he's holding a senior office. Right. So he tells Kalonzo, and I think this is where it's heading. And that's why I think Kalonzo needs to be a little bit worried at this juncture. He is saying, and this is where the problem comes in with politicians, when you have one of your men speaking honestly, keyword honestly, because what he's saying is this: I have 900 youths who have just been given jobs by the National Youth Service, all right, in Kitui West. Then there's the issue of the SGR. And then he's questioning his people. Are you trying to say Uhuru has not done anything? This is Nyanza talking. So really, if we are chastising Nyanza, is it because of who he is or his entrances?
So but I think what is important here, and what should be of concern for NASA is the fact that there is this rift within the Ukambani, that they're not coming across as a united front. You can imagine if there had been a rift in Jubilee between, you know, like what happened, and there wasn't a rift because we had the independent candidates vis-a-vis the Jubilee candidates. We'll come to that. What NASA would have had to say. It's a matter of deep concern that actually the vice presidential, the deputy presidential candidate is not able to rein in his backyard.
Okay. What I was saying was this. I was saying, you see, I was asking, is Nyanza now supporting Uhuru, if indeed he's doing so, because Uhuru has worked hard for this country, or would he then be supporting Uhuru because Kalonzo didn't become the president?
Professor, no, Nyanza is just reporting facts. Come on. Nyanza is just no. What has he said that's out of the ordinary? He's talked about the SGR.
In other words, let me break it down for you. In other words, if Kalonzo had been given the ticket, would he be supporting Uhuru on account of that development?
You see, I'm telling you, and I repeat.
And that was what I said earlier on. What has changed in this election? You have an election which is very similar. From 2007, what has changed? In 2007, we had an election of X number of people against one particular, you know, and a particular ethnic group on one side. In 2013, you have the entire country against the tyranny of numbers. But it's the same players.
Very quickly, Hussein.
There is nothing much that has changed. And so for the followers in Ukambani, I think it's beginning to dawn on them that not much has changed.
But very quickly, Hussein, it's like somebody saying that the likes of Koidu Amwera, the likes of Raila Odinga, the likes of Matiba, it's like somebody would come and say, you know what, these people have not done enough in the democratic space that we enjoy today. That's a fallacy, that's a lie. They've actually shaped where we see today. So what Nyanza is doing really, and let's give it to him, he's just reporting facts. But the SGR passes on a corridor that his people are going to gain. And you realize
that we saw in that story earlier today, and we saw him in Bomas saying, if I never said no Kalonzo, no NASA, there would not have been... True. Meaning, from, I mean, if we were to interpret what he was saying there, he was actually negotiating for that position of number 2.
But not really negotiating. He was adamant.
He never said then that you should support Uhuru's re-election.
Right. But he was adamant. He was adamant in saying there was a deal. And I think when people started saying that he is a mouthpiece for Kalonzo, I mean, I think he took that bite. And all he was saying...
We are wasting time on a small man. Nyanza is inconsequential. Let me tell you why. Kenyan politics is tribal. Once Wetangula and Mudavadi have taken Western Province, for Barak and Manyora to say they can take anything from them is very difficult.
So you don't think Nyanza...
Once Kalonzo has taken Ukambani vote, Nyenze, Musila and the rest are just boys.
Hang on a minute.
I'm telling you the
Kalonzo never really reigned in on Nyenze initially, did he?
You know,
he never really
it wasn't in his interest at that time.
Hussein, also the other question when they say it's a small deal in Machakos. How many Wiper MPs do you have out of 8?
Okay, I'll let Bara close this.
Yes, I like listening to Muduma. He speaks with the vehemence of an activist, which is good. But you see, one of the things that we need to take cognizance of is the fact that Nyanza has spent the past 4 years running down President Kenyatta in Parliament, on rooftops, on rostrums. And the question is valid, and this question does not amount to chastisement. The question is valid. At what point did he wake up to realize that the president has been doing very well? That question cannot be wished away. Secondly, when we say that Kalonzo has been given a raw deal, does it mean that Deputy President William Ruto has been given a raw deal? Because all these people cannot run for president.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Still on Musyoka, very briefly now. Kenyatta's utterances today in Bungoma. Okay, if we can have a look at that.
Kalonzo mwenzetu amepatiwa vice president, lakini amejiweka list ya kuwa senate. Sasa jameni, hawa ni watu ambao wako na confidence. Mtaenda na timu ya kupotea au mtaenda na timu ya kushinda jameni?
So very briefly, what is Uhuru Kenyatta doing there? Kalonzo has already rubbished this, saying this that is in the case.
Of course, I equally don't know what the president is talking about, because
in terms of campaigning, what is he trying to do?
Two things. One, that list is not yet with the IBC. Parties have advertised even in the paper. They are still compiling the party list. I think it's required about 23rd of this month. So on that basis alone, where is that list? Number two, none of us except Jennifer can go on that list. There is no room for a man on that list. So let's not discuss it.
But would he be knowing something we don't know the president?
He can't make it on the list. He's not a woman. He's not youth. He's not disabled.
He can't.
He's not a woman.
Because the laws are very clear about who can make it on that list to be nominated to the Senate. There are 16 women, 2 youth, and two disabled.
He's none of
Kalonzo, and Kalonzo is not any of.
But what
I think this is making the debate very petty. His Excellency, the President, should try to elevate the level of debate.
I think he was making a statement in Bungoma.
Where did
it's very rich, but I'm just, if you give me a chance, I'll say this is where Wetangula is standing for governor.
For senator.
For senator. We have the governor, Isaac Ruto, standing for governor.
Yes.
So there is an underlying message in that statement. You can't say that you have your candidates running for president and deputy, and then you're going back when you've been promised certain positions within the NASA's framework. So I think that was the message of the head of state.
Section 34(9) of the Elections Act, the nominations of party list members, says the party list shall not contain a name of a candidate nominated for an election.
Right.
So clearly,
but you know
what?
It's true.
It's so fluid. The election laws are changing. We have to keep up. There are so many amendments.
Jennifer has a point. The point Jennifer has is, I don't understand what was the thinking behind Wetangula going to stand for Senate.
Because immediately after Kenyatta talked about Kalonzo, he then said Wetangula.
At least for Isaac Ruto, I can understand is a current governor and might want to defend it. But for Wetangula going to stand for Senate, that was a dent in NASA. And these are some of the foolish and silly mistakes NASA keeps making, like the Odingas wanting everything. You know, these are some of the things I always find very interesting, and rather it doesn't speak well of them.
Right.
So Wetangula shouldn't have stood for Senate.
Yeah, but still, when the president says Wetangula is on the list for nomination, number one, Kalonzo
is wrong outright.
Where has he seen that?
But you know what I'm trying to say is there's been amendments, and there are continuous amendments. It's not yet covered as it is.
This would be a constitutional amendment. It would be an amendment that would
in the Elections Act.
Right. Currently, that is
a law stand. And I wouldn't put it past Parliament to amend that.
Maybe he'll be representing the youth. This or the people with disability.
We'll all see in the next 2 weeks. Jubilee, on the other hand, if you can play these sound bites now. This was from Uasin Gishu. Starting with Governor Mandago, what is this?
Mimi namuuliza kwa heshima kubwa ndugu yangu mdogo Mheshimiwa Kiprop Buzeki, namuuliza kwa heshima akubali amuunge mkono ndugu yake Mandago.
Waswahili husema mjinga akierefuka mwerefu yuko mashakani.
Okay. After that, of course, Buzeki refused to stand down for Mandago. We had Mandago, I think, the day or 2 days prior to that, saying they will monitor the election, and if people vote for Buzeki, then they don't have a problem being out of government. Meaning they'll say they'll have, I think, 5 agents in every polling station, and if they see people are voting for Buzeki, then they will decide to vote for the opposition. Now, how much of this, how much of a problem is this for Jubilee? And listening to what William Ruto said yesterday, and what President Kenyatta said yesterday, it is a realization by Jubilee that they now have to make it clear that it's only Jubilee candidates that must be supported.
You know, although this situation in Uasin Gishu is a special situation, but both sides, NASA and Jubilee, have pockets of problems across the country. Uasin Gishu is interesting because this Mandago guy, if you listen to him well, he says, look, gentlemen, if we shall monitor the first 100 votes to go in, if we notice somebody, there's a trend, people voting for Buzeki, we will advise our people to vote accordingly up there. And why am I saying this is an interesting case? It's an interesting case because the whole of Rift Valley, they support Jubilee. But there's some question mark disturbing them. Will Central Kenya, for the first time in Kenyan history, support somebody else? That thing is disturbing them. And it's not made any better by some of the moves we have seen some of these fellows making. So that becomes very interesting.
I think very quickly what Mandago is saying, and to an extent you can see that he has some element of validity in it. I think he picks the cue from the meeting that President Uhuru had in Nakuru, where he perpetrated upon one candidate to actually get out of the independency and actually dismiss his election campaign and went to support Lee Kinyanjui. So what really happened there is that Mandago would have taken cue. If actually you perpetrated and you negotiated a deal, kindly, we need you to come and do the same here. Is that the game that's going to happen? You've already seen the DP has gone there and actually now adamantly and plainly, clearly said, you know, and asked or requested Buzeki to actually step down. Is it going to happen? We have to wait and see. But one thing that's coming clear, and I agree to an extent with my good prof here, is that there could be that particular element of people saying, you know, we are going to see how the election will go, even though, I mean, how will you be able to monitor that? You know, are you, I mean, calling it a secret ballot? I mean, what time will you notice that 100 people have voted for? Come on.
Is it difficult?
It's very difficult.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with Muduma. Actually, how are you going to tell that 100 have already gone into this? Right. Secondly, Buzeki may not be from Nandi, but he's not from Central either. Right. So we cannot start bringing that in. I think the issue here is that Governor Mandago has embraced the politics of antagonism against ethnic communities domiciled in Uasin Gishu and who would seem to have come from elsewhere. He gets to a point where he starts saying that the numerical ramifications here could actually deal him a serious blow, because Buzeki comes already with his following, and you've seen how the crowd reacted to the deputy president's comments. So he would start with a significant Kalenjin following. If we talk about the ethnicity, there are certain ethnicities within ethnicities.
Right, but how do they handle this? First, this is both Jubilee and NASA, because we also saw a declaration by some Rift Valley MPs last week again, I think last week on Sunday, last Sunday, saying very clearly that only Jubilee candidates should be supported in the election. Of course, Jubilee also needs, and we've seen Uhuru Kenyatta embrace the other parties that are supporting his re-election. Jubilee needs all these people, all these parties, even in the independents, so that you get enough turnout. Correct. The same for NASA, I would presume. Yes, but then how do you do it when sometimes it gets this antagonism and it can make people not vote for you as a president? We saw in Mombasa the other day, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo voted as differing in terms of voting for a six-piece pattern.
I think that what happened in Eldoret with Mandago's case is that what we need to understand, if a party does not support its own candidates who have come through a nomination process, then they have no business being number one a party, and they have no business having nominations, as far as I'm concerned. If you've come through on a nomination on that particular ticket, then the party must be loyal to you. And that was the case in Nakuru, and this was the same case in Eldoret. So we started with that premise, that the party must be loyal, and they must balance it. Now, what the president was trying to tell his own people were, and it was translated, that you've got to learn to understand to live with people. And I think that that was a very profound message, yes? And perhaps what Mandago's issue is that Buzeki has, and I'm not in Eldoret, I'm not on the ground, has endeared himself to, I will call the migrant communities that live within Eldoret. And Mandago is the indigenous from Eldoret. However, and the president implored them. So that was good politics, that was positive politics. But first and foremost, every party, whether that party is NASA, whether that party is Jubilee, must
have a ripple effect.
Support.
It's good.
I think they have to...
Will this have a ripple effect? Will other governors, other MPs, or the things that expect the same?
But you will see that most of the independents on either side, and depending on which region they come from, have taken a position and say, we are independent, but we are supporting the presidential candidate.
Correct. And also the other challenge that will present itself is like what the people who are supporting Buzeki in this area, let me just use Washington Gishu as an example. You'll have people saying, you know what, if my governor is not going to be at the ballot, I won't show up, I won't actually come and vote. So for somebody who's an independent candidate, remember at this juncture the president, you know, both Raila Odinga and I think President Uhuru Kenyatta, you need these people because what they're telling you is, if my candidate is not going to be there, I don't have any reason why I should come. So that apathy, it's a serious challenge.
Okay, very briefly, this is one word each for you, if that's possible. Back to the problem of UNGA. We saw Cabinet Secretary Willie Bett again today meeting all this weekend, small and large scale millers, trying to find out what the issue is. The opposition have tried as much as they can to make this a campaign issue. Jubilee, on the other hand, says it should not and it will not, and they'll make sure it will not be a campaign issue. How risky is this for Jubilee? Do you think they're handling this the right way? Saturday.
You know, I was saying it surprises me that so close to an election, there are people, I suppose, close to the president, who are still playing politics with the UNGA, who are still going for money, and yet an election is so close. This is a messed thing. I'm just surprised that so close to such a crucial election, there are people, the mandarins, the visual mandarins, are still playing games with Kenyans regarding food, and the Kenyans are holding a vote. It is amazing. This is a strange country.
Okay. My answer is yes and no. And very quickly, you see, I've always asked myself, if we had a bumper harvest in 2014, 2015, 2016, okay, what happened in 2017? Yes, okay, we've been told, I mean, between 2016 and 2017, we've been told there were issues with rain, and we agree to that. But again, if it's not packaged properly and delivered, it's going actually to create an issue as we are coming into the election in August. What probably I would have wanted to see, because we are being told there are issues, and justified, you can actually justify this because we've had issues of hoarding, which has been actually a serious problem that we've had over time. When you know the rains, you know, have tallied, they've not, you know, that we've not had adequate rainfall. You've had people who, you know, the millers, you know, going back to hoarding and ensuring that they hoard for speculation purposes. And I think this is where the government needs to come very strong and actually be able to inflict that punch that yes, there is enough food, or even though there's not enough food, this is what we are doing to come and equip the deficit. So I think the message is the one that needs to come out clear.
Right, but
within the Jubilee strongholds, it will not matter. Okay? They have already made up their mind who they are going to vote for, and it doesn't matter. Within the NASA strongholds, it might count. But within
still it was their strongholds, so how will it count?
It would count in the sense that if there was somebody who was going to stay at home, they're likely to say, I must go and remove this fellow.
You know, momentum and timing is everything in politics. Several weeks ago, when the UNGA revolution began, the push for the UNGA revolution, it may have counted, but not now. If we go by the voting patterns, yes, I want to agree there has been mismanagement for the strategic grain reserves. There isn't enough UNGA on the shelves. We all aren't able to access UNGA. However, it's not going to be the way NASA would have wanted it to spill over and become a French-style revolution and a campaign issue. Is not going to be, and it's a non-issue. Like Barack said,
it's a non-issue.
It will be a non-issue during the campaign.
Because you believe the government will handle it.
No, because people are going to vote. It doesn't matter because the voting patterns are such that Jubilee voters will vote their way and NASA voters are going to vote even if there wasn't even if they worsened an unga shortage.
Okay, we'll see how that goes.
It's back to politics, like I said.
Yes.
It is just
keep saying
politics.
those
Simply
things don't matter.
No development,
Yes.
none of these things. It is politics.
It's just politics.
It is, we are talking about Mandago. It is the way Uhuru handled it in Nakuru with Mbogwa, in Muranga with Jamle Kamau, in Ocha. There's another one here, one of these areas. President Uhuru has handled it the way it should.
Yeah.
Raila is playing with Busia. Look at Bungoma. You want Bungoma people to vote for NASA, and yet ODM candidate is opposing a Ford Kenya candidate who would win outright if there was no. So these are some of the soft options they have. They must play soft politics. And that's what is going to count really. How do you handle this politics undercurrent? And I think you must give Uhuru credit. He's better at it than these other friends.
We said that last week.
Right.
Say it again.
Right. We'll see how this that goes. But thank you so much for coming tonight. That is Haman Manyora, Gabriel Muduma, Jennifer Shamala, and Barack Muluka. Thank you so much for making time for us. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GameTime2017 on Twitter. You can text us on 22422. We're back after this break.